who would you physically hand the book to when it's done?
Okay.
Yeah. And physically is the key word there, because I don't want you to give me an avatar. I want you to picture an actual person you know with a face and a name who would get the most benefit out of reading the book. A great book at its core, even though a book is obviously a very long form piece of content, the great books are very simple at their core.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. You are listening to the Entrepreneur and Leaders Evolution, where success isn't accidental. It's engineered from the inside out by providing resources from mindset to skill set to help on your business and personal growth journey. I have another goodie for you. I have Sean Mabry here. He is the founder of The Heart of Your Story. And I'm telling you, we're going to get some good advice about marketing and ghostwriting and all the things. So if you are in business, or if you're an entrepreneur or a leader that is thinking about writing a book or getting more marketing into your everyday part of your business, stay tuned. So here we have it. Without further ado, hi, Sean.
Hi, Nina. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being on. I definitely appreciate chipping away at your mind, getting a little bit of your expertise and sharing it with the community. So thank you for giving back today. And we're going to jump right on in. Yeah. So I got a few good questions for you, just to make this a good, nice little conversation. And so here we go. So before we get into all the marketing and the ghostwriting information, I always like to start with the person behind the work. What problem do you solve? And what originally pulled you into this world of helping entrepreneurs and leaders build authority in the first place?
Yeah, quite simply, I help people tell the stories only they can tell. And that's especially important now in the age of AI, where generic information is easier to access than ever. And the thing that really sets people apart is wisdom, which the way I define it, wisdom is information filtered through experience. Like you've actually taken these things and applied them yourself and discovered the nuances, maybe even reached a totally different conclusion, right? But now you can speak from experience rather than, well, a robot told me so.
Yeah.
Like I said, that's more important now than ever. And the way I got here was kind of a long and winding journey. And in fact, the move to ghostwriting in many ways is a kind of homecoming for me, because I went to college for creative writing. And before that, I actually did theater more than anything. But I'm just a storyteller through and through. And even before theater, I was always a writer. I mean, I've been writing since age 12. But the thing that always draws me back to it as a discipline is the fact that I can write down a story and connect with someone in a totally different place and time. And what a magical, incredible thing that is. Like, at the end of the day, as simple as that sounds, like that's the thing that I'm fully addicted to. And all the different ways that plays out. I mean, it's one way in fiction, which I do write fiction as well. It's another thing in business. Obviously, marketing plays into that as well. But at the end of the day, it's the same effect. It's how can we package this moment and beam it forward in time and beam it across time and space. Like that will always be magical to me.
Yeah, definitely. It's part of it. It's that connection through the words. It's the connection through the message. Nice. I love that. From your perspective, why is writing a book such a powerful move for entrepreneurs and leaders? Like, how should they think about this as a part of their long-term business strategy?
Yeah, the term that comes to mind is cornerstone. That's what I often use with clients in terms of understanding that these days a book is not necessarily going to transform your entire business overnight on its own. Like, I don't want to be realistic about what it can do. Yeah. But in terms of, you look at a founder who is already building a very public presence, someone who has a podcast, for instance, or does the round on other people's podcasts, or has a YouTube channel that they've really built up. Those things are all great, but as one of my friends was explaining the other day, all of those things, especially at a high level, and I will say especially YouTube is only getting more competitive by the day, and you need to bring in your production value. But all that to say, these are all channels that come and go. Like, you have to keep turning that wheel, and there's a dollar amount attached to that, right? Like, you think of like what it costs to produce a year of content on YouTube. So you spend all that money, and yes, you do build traction, but the next year you got to spend that money again. And you might even end up spending more money, actually, given the way the platform keeps changing. But with a book done well and positioned correctly, that is something where you pay for it once and the benefits compound, and it feeds into this whole other ecosystem of your podcast or YouTube, whatever, because it becomes the thing that when somebody wants to go deep with you and suss out, like, is this someone like I can really go the distance with, right? Is this someone I should really devote serious time and money to? A book is a great way to suss that out, because a book, just by nature of the medium, you are making a permanent stand. Even now, right? Like, even though, like, obviously, supposedly everyone has a book these days, there's still part of the aura of a book is somebody thought this was important enough to print on paper. Somebody thought this was something that will probably still be true in 5 to 10 years, because otherwise, why would you bother putting it in a book? Like, if it's only true for the next 6 months, make a YouTube video. Right?
Yeah, exactly. Good point.
And so stepping into that frame of mind really forces you to step back and clarify the core principles of what you do, in a way that, running in the kind of content hamster wheel, it's easy to just get caught up in the trends and, you know, whatever's hot at the moment. Which, you know, of course, there's value in that too. There's strategies for that too. But you can do that for years without ever really understanding what's going on under the hood. And that's what book readers want. They want to see under the hood.
I think that what's under the hood is a really good point. But, you know, when you sit down to write something permanent, as you said, you have to bring who you are with that. Like, you know, it's not on a whim of, let me make this 2-minute post that I'm about to do. You have to really bring up, like, what message do I want to have out in the world? What do I want to be known by? You have to really bring it. And so, yeah, I do get that. I agree. It has to be deeper about the message that you're saying, so the identity is connected to it. Yeah, well said. You mentioned that you have experience as a copywriter for 10 plus years. And that you transitioned from, like, strong marketing services within business to shifting to ghostwriting. And so, kind of a twofold question. What made you recognize it was time to pivot is one of them. And then, as a business owner, what advice would you give on kind of knowing the shift and the lay of the land on when you might need to? I think that's where a lot of business owners get stuck or trapped in their businesses, or it dies out because they don't shift with the tide.
Yeah, I mean, one of the biggest things that's been going on in copywriting is that we've all been watching in real time as the bottom of the market, and even increasingly the middle of the market, gets eaten up by AI.
Yeah.
And what I realized was there's going to come a point, at least for most of the industry, there's certain, like, kind of boutique applications where it still makes business sense to have someone that's a little bit more high touch in the way that I like to be. But at the end of the day, if I want to keep wearing the copywriter hat, and if I wanted to keep growing my business that way, I realized that I actually need to evolve into more of a CMO, effectively, where I'm now looking at campaigns from a 30,000 foot view and looking way beyond just the copy itself. And the thing is, like, I'm very interdisciplinary. Like, I love understanding how the rest of the team works and what they do, and I love, like, dipping my fingers in, like, a lot of different things. But at the end of the day, my writing is my mission, right? Like, it's the thing that drove me from the beginning. If the path forward meant pulling myself away from that, I was like, well, that's not me. And what is that for, ultimately? Like, just to make more money? Like, there are plenty of ways to make more money.
Yeah.
And one of the other big things that changed on the personal level is that my son was born, 2 years ago. And it was really seeing him and thinking through what the rest of his life looks like and the conversations we're going to end up having, where I realized I want to be able to say this is something I'm proud of, not just this is something that makes money. And not to say that I was not necessarily ashamed of the stuff I was doing before. It's just that it was just for the money, right? Like, it didn't have that same level of mission and purpose for me. And that was something I'd felt for a while. With the birth of my son, that became non-negotiable. It's like, I can't be having this conversation with him at the point when he is asking, what does daddy do? Right? Like, I need to be able to tell him that I'm acting in purpose, because that's ultimately what I want for him too. It was a feeling I'd had for a while, where it's like, okay, I'm making good money, but it's not in a way that feels aligned with my purpose. Like, I could go do more of that, right? But to what? To just have more money? Like, some might disagree. For me, that's not enough, right? Yeah, I do want more money, but I want it in a way that also is aligned with my purpose. And ultimately, I want to be able to tell him, as he gets older, not just, here's how to make money, but here's how to build something meaningful. And that's the cool thing about ghostwriting, is that it actually touches on that on multiple layers, right? So on the one hand, I'm acting out my purpose by getting to help people tell their stories, and which, by the way, has as much to do with the actual writing as it does with the conversation that leads to the story. And on top of that, I'm getting to interview these people that have done incredible things while living out their purpose, right? Which I find that the people that tend to want a book think in very similar terms, right? Like they're thinking in terms of legacy and impact, and have been from the beginning. Like they have some sort of mission or purpose, however you want to define it, that they want to enshrine. And I love that. Like I love hearing like how they got there, the curveballs they hit along the way, right? Like that, to me, that's the most fun thing in the world, is just getting to go through all that with them.
I can tell you're passionate about it. Now you speak in my language. You speak in my language now. So I think you actually answered the question. Even in telling your story, you answered the other part. So for example, so my coaching business, I have two businesses. It's called Path to Alignment. Alignment. With the whole point of that, right? Like that your work, your business needs to be aligned with your values, your passion, and not just a money magnet, right? Like not just cranking out money. And I think that's part of like what you were saying is, if we were going to give advice to people, it'd be like, make sure you don't get too far off kilt, right? Yes, you want to make money, but it needs to align. You don't want to lose yourself in the essence of like what you're called to do and what you're aligned to do, or you're going to be miserable. Make money, but you're going to be miserable at the same time. So I think that like what you just said kind of overlap with the advice. But if you want to add some more advice out there, I'm all for that too. When it, what to look for when the pivot was that question. But I think you answered that beautifully. Anything else to add to that?
I think, yeah, I mean, that's such a huge topic that we could dive into. Like when I think of some of the stories I've heard / written, the thing that keeps coming back to me is how often these people would take a principled stand and not take the shortcuts that other people in their industry are taking. And the thing about that is very easy to be idealistic and say like, oh, well, just stand on your square and accept the consequences. But the thing is, in business, you have to account for that somehow. Yeah, because, when you choose not to cut corners, and there's a cost to that, right? Every cost can be calculated. And what I notice as the pattern across a lot of the books I've helped with recently is that part of what allows a founder to take a disciplined stand like that is that, I should say a principled stand, is that they're also very disciplined in their business. They do the things that need to be done and know their numbers well enough that they can make the adjustments necessary to avoid the shortcut. And I think that's something that's been a huge shift in my own thinking lately too, is that seeing that those examples has encouraged me to be just all the more disciplined and structured in how I run my business. Like if you're not going to take the shortcuts, then don't be surprised when you have to pay the price for that. But understand that it is absolutely possible, and in the long run worth it. Like in the long run, that's how you build something with real integrity and real staying power.
Well said. And good advice. Hope y'all are staying tuned here. Okay. So let's get into the nitty-gritty of the ghostwriting. So
yeah,
ghostwriting has become a big tool for founders, leaders, building authority, right? But a lot of people don't know when it actually makes sense to shift from trying to write themselves or when to invest in it, right? So from your perspective, what should we be looking out for on how do we know to find someone credible? How do we know when to do it? And all the things.
Yeah, it really comes down to, I would say the question of whether to outsource it or not comes down to what does your bandwidth look like, right? Like when people come to me for full ghostwriting, they are so insanely busy that like they literally cannot find the time, right?
Yes.
And also sometimes, like, and frankly, like I have one client who has fairly severe ADHD and brilliant dude, but like that his brain is not wired to sit down and write a book at all. There's so many things he does incredibly well. He's had incredible success in business. He's not built to write a book. And that's fine. If you're just not wired to sit and stare at a screen all day or a Word doc all day, then don't be that person. Find that person to come and do it for you.
Yeah.
Beyond that, I think it's a question of like you asked about timing, right? Like when is it the right time to write the book, period? That is one of the core things I take clients through in the discovery process, like before we've even signed an agreement. And in fact, just today I was actually working on a workshop I'll be presenting in a friend of mine's group that goes over this whole process of how to determine what book you should actually be writing, when you should write it, is now the right time. So in fact, I might as well give you the 5 magic questions. So this is the perfect starting point, which is the first of the 5 is, what do you want the book to do for you in this chapter of your career? And the more specific you can be in your answer there, the better. Because if it's something like, I want it to give me more credibility, or I want to bring in more clients. That's super broad. Like, we could go so much deeper than that, right?
True.
And the depth of your answers there will determine what kind of book you should write, if you should even write a book, right?
Ah.
So the more you
Yes.
can,
Yeah.
and really it's constantly asking why, right? So you say like, okay, I want to write a book to, and not just asking why, but challenging yourself in terms of where else can I accomplish that same goal? Which might
Good
sound
question.
weird coming from the book guy, right? But that's part of my thought process is like, look, if there's a simpler way to do this than writing a whole book, you should probably go do that first. Because writing a book is even, I have a lot of tools and tricks, but at the end of the day, it's a commitment. And
Yeah,
I want
it's
to
a
make sure
commitment.
that the commitment is worth the squeeze. So challenge yourself, like for each of those points, where else can I do this? Is there a simpler, easier way to do it? And when there's still that one thing left where it's like, no, like the book, I have to write a book to get X. That's the real answer. Because now we've filtered out all the obvious. We've gotten rid of all the surface level explanations of like, oh, well, I saw so-and-so write a book, maybe I should too. It's like, no. We don't, that is not enough to tease the best book out of you, and it's certainly not enough to get you through the process.
Yes.
Because you're going to need deep conviction to get through the process. Now, the next question is, who would you physically hand the book to when it's done?
Okay.
Yeah, and physically is the key word there, because I don't want you to give me an avatar. I want you to picture an actual person you know with a face and a name who would get the most benefit out of reading the book. So caveat here being like, don't give me like, oh, I'm going to hand it to mom and dad. Like, look, I'm sure they'd be very proud of you, but
They'll
unless
take
they
anything.
are also the target audience, right? Like, that's not what we're looking for. But that's so important because it gets you out of your head and into your heart. And a great book at its core, even though a book is obviously a very long form piece of content, the great books are very simple at their core. Like, they have one very, very simple idea or set of ideas that they're getting across. And people can really overcomplicate it when they're like up here versus if they just knew like, okay, this is the person I'm talking to and this is the transformation, which gets into the next question. This is the transformation they need. That solves a lot of problems for you. Which brings you to question number 3. What is the one sentence from the entire book that the reader must remember? Which might seem like a tall order before you've written it, but if you can at least take a stab at that now, that's going to do wonders for clarifying all the above and everything to come, right? If you know that that's like the one sentence that they have to grasp, then you can just keep building everything else around that and make sure it lands like a comet when they finally get there. Question number 4 is, what makes you the only person that can write this book? And again, this is something that might seem very obvious on the surface, but we got to go down the layers, right? Because what most people will do when you ask them that is like, oh, well, here are my certifications and here are my past accomplishments and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, that's all fine. It's a good starting point. But the thing is, most of those things are the stuff that someone else out there has too.
Exactly.
So how did you get there? What is your unique perspective on those things? That's what we really want. That's what that question is really designed to tease out, and then that's going to suffuse through the entire book. Which is why, like, you can have 2 experts. I mean, that's why you do have multiple experts on the same topic, right? Is that nobody's looking for the final answer to these things. In fact, this is a kind of a tangent, but I think your people will appreciate it. Book readers love books, and we buy tons of them. And in fact, like, one of the things I keep finding with the high-level founders I talk to is that most of them went through a monster reading phase where they were reading anywhere from like 100 to 200 books a year. And you think about your ideal reader is probably somewhere in the middle of their monster reading phase right now. So your goal is not necessarily to write like the final definitive answer to the topic. It's to write the most memorable take on the topic. Because by the end of those 200 or so books they've read, they're going to forget almost all of them. But if you can latch yourself in and be the one that they remember, that carries on. Because then that's someone for the rest of their career, they're going to have your name on their lips. And they're going to recommend you up and down the chain.
You're talking about some word of mouth.
Yeah.
Referral. Yeah.
Yes, that's right. And that's the goal. So then the final question is to look at what other books in your space are doing and where they are failing and how your book will fill the gap.
I like that one.
And that's usually the fun one, right? Because usually by the point someone wants to write a book, they've got some big, strong opinions about the rest of the industry. And you should be able to think of some other titles where it's like, not quite, right? And again, that becomes a really important part of the marketing piece too, because you're never, like people who consume books are always positioning them. I mean, literally, that's my bookshelf right there. I'm always positioning books quite literally next to other books, right? Like even just in my own head. And so you want to establish a relationship between the books they've already read and your book. Now, it might be adversarial, right? Like, oh, I'm here to like prove those guys wrong or whatever. But can also be a very positive comparison. It can, in fact, with my book that I'm working on now, one of my biggest influences was a book called Be So Good They Can't Ignore You by Cal Newport. And as I was taking myself through the process, I was like, I pretty much agree with everything in that book. I would happily give that book to other people. What makes my book different is that his approach is very analytical and data driven. Mine is the lived experience. This is me actually living these ideas out. And that's a perfect example of something where if you're not really sure what your position is going to be in the industry, start there. Start by saying, like, look, I know this is what all the experts are saying from a data perspective. Here's my flesh and blood take on it.
Yeah.
Right? That was always valuable. That's always relevant.
Oh yeah, that lived experience, that connects. That's going to connect. Okay, I love the 5 questions. I hope y'all taking notes. I love the questions before you get started on, like, if all things being said, if there's no other way, if you feel like book is the answer, then let's get committed. One, it helps like just get all the barriers out the way of the excuses that if you committed to it, you already got down to this point, you made this decision, let's get to it, right? Like this is what you decided was the best next step. And so one thing that I think this overlaps with the work that I do is with entrepreneurs, leaders, there's around mindset and peak performance, right? Or just performing at this point, right? Like, let's just perform.
Yeah.
Like many founders know that they should build authority. They should be working on these things. But then there's things like imposter syndrome or fear of visibility or pressure and just poor habits, right? Like procrastination tendencies. And so it's like, yep, this sounds good in theory. Yep, I'm going to do it. And then there's the but, and the excuse, and the delay. That's what we see, right? Mm-hmm. So from your perspective, working with individuals on this, how much of building authority is strategy and how much is internal work like confidence, resilience, mental discipline?
It's absolutely a mix of both, and it's a constant feedback loop, particularly when it comes to writing a book. In fact, I think one of the things that is probably one of the biggest aha moments I had over the course of my career is I got rid of the idea of writer's block. Like, writer's block does not apply to me.
I like that.
What writer's block really is, in my book, is a lack of clarity. And in some cases, it's even a lack of conviction, right? Like, you are not convinced that this thing needs to be written or that it needs to be written in this way. At which point, you have to back up and be like, okay, why not? Right? Like, what is missing here? Or where am I what clarity, what answers do I need to move forward? And this is where people get really spun up around the idea of like discipline. Discipline, I think, is one of those things that people really, really misunderstand, especially with creative work, is that discipline, the way it's often framed, is you just got to keep pushing through the pain, right? You got to keep pushing even when you don't want to, even when like your body's screaming, no, stop. There's a time and a place for that. But if you're using discipline to push through an actual structural problem with the work, or even a deeper emotional or philosophical problem within yourself, then that problem remains unaddressed. And now you've just pushed through and expended all this energy to get to the end of something without harvesting the part that would actually be most valuable to put in the book. And in fact, that's, one of the things that goes into that training I'm working on right now is the idea that your outline is meant to be a living document. Like, I'm a huge proponent of outlining ahead of time for all the reasons I was just describing. Like, your outline is your chance to like go through these questions and keep yourself honest, but with the understanding that it is absolutely going to change as the work goes on, because you're going to make new discoveries along the way. And the ability to harness those discoveries and work them back into the big picture is a crucial part of the process. That's like, and it's one of my favorite parts of the process. I think that's like the most fun, is like the discoveries along the way. And so a big part of that is when you notice yourself getting caught up on something, take a second to stop and interrogate that. Like, why is this chapter? I did it just this week. I ended up like re-outlining like 3 whole chapters worth because of something that I got stuck on in chapter 12. But that's exactly what I needed to do, because now I'm crystal clear on what those next chapters will look like. But if I had just buckled down and be like, oh, I have to finish chapter 12 today, it's like, okay, well then I'd still be confused about those next few chapters. And I think that's a big piece of it too, is that I find that it is always easier to fill in the middle part of the jigsaw puzzle than the outer than to go outward. In fact, that's the metaphor I use all the time. When you're making an outline, it's doing the outer edge pieces of the jigsaw puzzle. So then you're just working inwards.
Yeah.
That's the easiest way to solve a jigsaw puzzle. Same thing if writing a book.
That is. We're doing one right now, and that's exactly what we're doing.
Yeah.
I love that. Okay. And it may be different under ghostwriting, right? Because you're doing, but it is collaborative, right? Like you do have to work with them. So do you find that these kind of issues delay the process of that? Or is the ghostwriting piece kind of help take that procrastination and delay out of this process? Because I hear people, oh, I'm going to write a book 3 years later. I'm going to write that book. So that's what I'm getting at there.
Yeah, I mean, definitely for ghostwriting, yes. Obviously, that does kind of eliminate the constraint of having to like sit and power through the words yourself. But the other thing too is that that whole process of discovery I was talking about still applies, and if anything, it gives you a whole different level of freedom to be like, well, all I have to do is talk to Sean about, hey, I noticed this, and can we include that? And hey, this gave me this idea. And it's like, yeah, of course, happy to work that in, right? And I know you're going to give me new and better material as the book goes on, so that's not a surprise to me. My process is ready to handle that. And that's part of what when I'm like scoping out a project, I budget that in. Like I know that the book is going to get kind of long and stretchy in the middle because of the new revelations that come out. That's okay. I account for that.
It's part of the flow. Okay. Yeah. So that sounds like another reason people should probably consider ghostwriting. If you've had a book in your mind for the last year or two, you might want to talk to Sean. Like, that might be something to consider.
Well, and another thing I want to throw out here, and this is part of why I've been talking about the discipline piece and all these things, is there's a middle option here, which is book consulting, which is another thing I offer, which is basically if you want me on hand to review your work chapter by chapter with regular check-ins, and for that whole process we talked about at the beginning, I'll take you through that, apply my wisdom and industry knowledge to that step. And as you go through the writing process, for one, you just the accountability, right? Like you'll always know I'm going to be there.
That's important.
Hey, where's the next chapter? But also, I can help you harness those new opportunities as they come up without it blowing up the project. Because trust me, I've been there. I know how easy it is for that to happen. I also know now how to like really smoothly stitch things back together when those things come up. So that's part of the benefit of working with me. You had one more question.
I do. I have one more question. So for founders, leaders, any high performer that's ready to get to it, let's just say not even just ghostwriting, but just they should be creating content on any scale, right? But they're feeling maybe overwhelmed, or there's issues with visibility, whatever the issue is that they're not getting out there. This should be a part of your business strategy. People don't know you if they don't know you exist, so you have to get out there. A few things that they should focus on to get over that hump or build authority, without freaking themselves out too much.
I think the first and most foundational thing is to bring your private conversations into the public. And of course, there's nuances that you use pseudonyms if you have to, but honestly, that to this day, that's like one of my main sources of content. Like I am talking to clients, I'm working with clients, and these are the things I notice as we do the work. And I just talk about that. And that is, for one, it's an evergreen resource, right? Like you're already doing the work, so you might as well talk about it.
Yeah.
And two, that allows you to get out of your head in terms of like, here's what people are going to think about me, or here's like what I should, that evil word should put in my content, versus like, look, the kinds of people I want to work with are having these issues and noticing these things and having these aha moments. So if you just put that forward, you're going to attract more people like that.
Yeah.
It could be very simple.
Exactly. Talk about what you know.
Right.
And talk about what's going on in the day-to-day of what your work is, and that actually builds expertise and authority. I like it. Keep it simple. All right. Well, thank you so much. How can we find you? What do you want to share about how we can find you, support you, follow you, access you?
Simplest way for now is just come find me on Facebook and LinkedIn.
I will put it in the description.
Yep. And just come say hi. And if not, you're welcome to lurk and watch me post about all the books I'm writing. But no, like I said, I love talking to people. And there'll be no like sneaky weird pitch or anything. Just come talk to me. It's fine.
Don't be shy. Just come say hello. If you have questions, you want to know more about ghostwriting and all the services, I'll put that information in so you guys can access and touch points. Say, hey, I saw Dr. Nina's post or video on YouTube, and I'm coming to say hi, like he said. So come say hi. Don't be shy. thank you so much for being a part of the show, sharing your expertise, and let me pick your brain for a minute. I truly appreciate it. Any last words, any last advice for us before we close out?
Just keep telling the stories only you can tell. If there's one gift I hope to give you, it's the power to do that.
Thank you so much.